It was a cold autumn evening when Mark found himself driving along a desolate highway. The road stretched for miles, with nothing but darkness surrounding him. He had been on the road for hours and needed to refuel both his car and his energy. Spotting a dimly lit gas station, he decided to pull over. The station looked old, with flickering lights and a cracked sign that read, "All Night Fuel." There was no one else around except for the attendant inside, a man with a grizzled beard and a strange, hollow stare. Mark stepped out of his car, the crunch of gravel beneath his boots the only sound in the eerie silence. As he began pumping gas, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He turned around but saw nothing. The attendant waved at him through the glass, motioning for him to come inside to pay. Reluctantly, Mark stepped into the small convenience store. The air inside was stifling, and the fluorescent lights buzzed loudly overhead. The man behind the counter didn't say a word as Mark handed him the cash. But just as Mark was about to leave, the man spoke in a low, gravelly voice. "You shouldn't be out here alone at night." Mark chuckled nervously and replied, "Yeah, I know. Just passing through." The attendant leaned closer, his expression deadly serious. "No. I mean it. Stay here until morning. It's not safe out there." Mark felt a chill run down his spine. He glanced out the window, half expecting to see something lurking in the shadows. But the road was empty, save for his car. Ignoring the man's warning, Mark thanked him and headed back to his vehicle. As he drove away, he couldn't shake the eerie feeling that something was wrong. Then, just a few miles down the road, his headlights caught a figure standing in the middle of the highway. He slammed on the brakes, the car screeching to a halt. The figure didn't move. It was a woman in a tattered dress, her face obscured by her long, matted hair. Mark rolled down his window slightly and called out, "Are you okay?" The woman didn't respond. Instead, she tilted her head, as if studying him, before vanishing into thin air. Mark's blood ran cold as he realized he hadn't imagined it. He sped off, his heart pounding in his chest. Later, he learned that several people had disappeared on that stretch of highway over the years, their last known location being the gas station he had stopped at. The attendant's warning echoed in his mind, and he vowed never to ignore his instincts again. The moral of the story? Sometimes, the warnings we receive might save us from dangers we can't understand until it's too late. Emily and her friends were on a road trip, their laughter and music filling the car as they cruised along the interstate. It was well past midnight when they decided to stop at a rest area to stretch their legs. The rest stop was old and deserted, surrounded by thick woods that seemed to swallow the moonlight. As they pulled in, the only light came from a flickering street lamp near the parking lot. The group hesitated, but their need for a break outweighed their unease. They got out of the car, joking about the creepy atmosphere to lighten the mood. Emily decided to use the restroom while the others explored the vending machines. The restroom was dark and damp, with peeling paint and broken mirrors. As she washed her hands, she heard a faint sound, a soft, rhythmic tapping. She paused, listening intently. The tapping grew louder, echoing off the walls. Turning toward the stalls, she saw a pair of shoes peeking out from under the last stall door. "Hello? Is someone there?" she called out, her voice trembling. There was no response. Gathering her courage, she pushed open the stall door, only to find it empty. Panicked, Emily ran out of the restroom, only to find her friends waiting by the car, their faces pale. "We need to leave now," one of them said, pointing toward the woods. Emily turned and saw what they were staring at, a figure standing just beyond the tree line, watching them. The figure was tall and thin, with glowing eyes that seemed to pierce through the darkness. As they scrambled into the car, the figure began to move closer, its movements unnaturally fast. They sped away, leaving the rest area behind, but the sense of dread lingered. Later, they discovered that the rest area had been abandoned for years after a series of disappearances. The figure in the woods was never explained, but Emily knew they had come far too close to becoming its next victims. The moral of the story: trust your instincts, and remember that some places are abandoned for a reason. Jake was driving home late one night after visiting his parents in a small town. The road was long and empty, the kind that seemed to stretch endlessly into the darkness. He was halfway through his journey when he saw a figure standing by the side of the road, thumbing for a ride. Against his better judgment, Jake decided to pull over. The hitchhiker was a young man, dressed in a hoodie and jeans, his face obscured by the shadows. "Thanks for stopping," the man said, sliding into the passenger seat. As they drove, Jake tried to make conversation, but the hitchhiker was oddly quiet. He only spoke to give directions, leading Jake off the main road and onto a narrow, winding path through the woods. Jake's unease grew with each passing mile. Finally, the hitchhiker broke the silence. "You shouldn't be out here at night. This road isn't safe." Jake frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" He asked. The hitchhiker turned to him, his eyes dark and unblinking. "You'll see," he said cryptically. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the middle of the road. A woman in a blood-stained dress, her face pale and expressionless. Jake swerved to avoid her, the car skidding to a stop. When he turned to look at the hitchhiker, the passenger seat was empty. Terrified, Jake sped away, but the woman reappeared in his rearview mirror, standing at the edge of the road. Later, Jake learned that the hitchhiker was a spirit, warning travelers of the dangers on that cursed road. The woman he saw was said to be the ghost of a bride who had died in a car accident there years ago. The moral of the story: not all who wander the roads are living, but some may have good intentions. Sometimes, even spirits can serve as protectors. These three stories remind us that the road can be a dangerous place, filled with mysteries and unexplainable encounters. The next time you find yourself at a pit stop, remember to trust your instincts, heed the warnings of strangers, and tread carefully, because you never know what might be waiting in the shadows.